Hi, my name is Andre Tunk, founder and CEO here at Border0, and today I'd love to talk to you about Border0 for AWS. If you have multiple AWS accounts, EC2 instances, ECS clusters, RDS databases, etc., then you know how challenging it can be to make sure that everyone has access to the right resources at the right time. So in this video, I'll demonstrate to you how you can use Border0 to manage access for your AWS resources, see exactly who's logging into what and what's happening in these environments. Most of all, I'll show you how easy it is to deploy Border0 in your AWS environment due to the integrations we've done with AWS. So let's get started. Step 1 is to install the Border0 connector into my AWS environment. Border0 makes it easy and has a few tools. We can either use the CLI installer or a web-based wizard. I'm going to use the CLI installer. In this case, I'm typing in Border0 connector install --AWS. See how it asks me for the region, the VPC, the subnet, and it auto-detects that based on my credentials. So this is being sped up. What you're seeing is a CloudFormation stack being executed, and it spins up an EC2 instance, assigns all the right policies and roles to it, and now the machine is there. You can see how it registers itself in the Border0 portal as well as a new connector. I can click on it, connect, and now I'm SSH'd into this machine using just my SSO credentials. Now that the connector is installed in my AWS environment, we can start using it. We'll use some of the discovery plugins to automatically discover my AWS resources, and with a single click, turn them into Border0 resources. In the connector page, we'll go to plugins and notice how all the AWS specific discovery plugins are already enabled. If we go to the discovery tab, we'll find all the discovered resources. Let's click on this EC2 instance. Notice how everything's already pre-populated. All I do is create new socket, and with that I've turned this EC2 instance into a Border0 SSH socket. Let's go back. Click on this AWS RDS instance. Again, everything's pre-populated. We support multiple authentication types, including AWS IAM and username and password. So I'll provide that, scroll to the bottom, hit create socket, and now we've turned this RDS instance into a Border0 database socket. Finally, we'll do the same for this AWS ECS cluster. Everything's pre-populated, the connector has the right role, so I'll just hit create socket. And again, notice how within a minute we've turned a RDS cluster, an ECS cluster, and an AWS EC2 instance into Border0 resources. Next up, let's try and access these resources. In this example, we'll use the Border0 web client at client.border0.com. In the portal, you'll see a quick link at the top right. You can click that, and that brings me to the client portal. Notice how everything is automatically grouped by AWS account and region. So in this case, I see the 3 resources that we just added. Let's click on database, and there I am. I am now in the database and can execute queries. Let's try the EC2 instance. I'll click on this EC2 instance. It already guessed the username. It's logging me in, and now I have shell access to this SSH EC2 instance. Finally, we can do the same for the detected ECS cluster. Notice how it finds all of the containers in here and all the tasks. Click on it, and now I'm in. So also notice that at no time did it ask me for a username or a password or a VPN. All of that's taken care of by Border0. Border0 provides administrators with lots of insight and visibility, allowing you to answer questions like who accessed what, when, and what happened during these sessions. We're back in the admin portal, and this shows us all the sessions. Remember that database session that we just did to RDS? These are all the queries that we were executing. Pretty cool, right? Also, remember we logged into that EC2 instance with SSH? We can just click here and replay session and literally watch back a video of what commands we executed. Border0 allows you to export these events to third-party systems, including Slack and AWS CloudWatch. Notice how I've created a CloudWatch integration here. Next up, I'll go to notifications and configure that. You can, for example, configure what types of events you want to have exported, as well as the integration name. Next up, we'll go to the CloudWatch portal. You select the log stream, and now you can see all these session events show up in CloudWatch. And from here on out, you can use all the logging tools that you're used to. To wrap up, in this demo we saw how easy it was to deploy a Border0 connector into an existing AWS environment. And this diagram shows the architecture we created. We saw how Border0 detected all of my AWS resources. Within a minute we added an EC2 instance, an ECS cluster, and an RDS database to my Border0 environment. I could then access these resources using the Border0 WASM client or my favorite CLI client. And all I needed was my SSO credentials. And now as a Border0 administrator, I was also able to see all the sessions, giving me that visibility and control and allowing the administrator to answer the questions like who accessed what, from where, and what happened during these sessions. So I hope this demo gave you some insights in how easy it is to use Border0. So I recommend you give it a try. Go to border0.com and sign up for free.